forgotten neurotransmitter, Gamma-Aminobutyric Acid, causes us to relax. First off, why should we care about relaxing? It's really, like, everybody just wants to be on all the time.
We evolved to have day and night. We evolved to have an on and on switch in the brain. And evolutionarily, there's just really two switches, right? Okay. Switch on, you have glutamate, and then you have switch off, which is gamma. And these are the generalized systems that do it. But for most of the time, what captures our attention would be all of this, what I call superstar neurotransmitters, like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. But no one pays attention to the off switch. And much of what the off switch does is that it actually allows our brain to rest and regenerate. In a hyper-stimulative world, as I like to call it, we need these GABA breaks, right? And there's a lot of GABA breaks that we need, especially at nighttime, since we have conquered fire and we have electricity, which now lights up our nights and gave birth to the word phototoxicity. Now light can actually be toxic to you.
Just going back to this premise of working hard all the time, being on all the time, that breaks element of it actually allows you to be a better performer when you're on, right? There needs to be an element or a certain ratio of rest to your activity. One of the issues you rightfully highlighted is that there's so many stimulations in the environment. I mean, there's behavioral changes that we can make in order to introduce rest. With supplements, what can we do?
You can use natural products, for example, like you can have chamomile tea, magnolia bark tea, and these other substances that will make you sleepy. Of course, the first thing that you do is to correct your sleep hygiene, meaning you sleep at the same. If you're staying within the same time zone for about 3 months, you make sure that you are actually sleeping at the same time every night, even if you're not sleeping. So your body gets used to the automaticity of the sleep. The body starts performing. It's our body can be trained. Our bodies can be trained, even if we're in older age, right? Except for the fact, of course, some of the hormones are not produced as much, so you would get like different cycles. Like, for example, the cortisol cycle gets different when you're older. Melatonin cycle, the pituitary the pineal gland gets calcified for melatonin. So all of these things are taken together and would actually account for all of this parasympathetic or lack of parasympathetic tone that we have. But mostly for people in the workforce or people who are still young, they disrupt a lot of these by just go to the go. If you believe in there's a theory of aging called the number of heartbeats per minute, that you have only a fixed number of heartbeats per life. Well, sympathetic will actually activation actually hasten that.
Yeah, you increase your sympathetic tone, you then increase your blood pressure, which increases your heart rate, which gives you tachycardia, and then all of a sudden you are reducing your
that's one of the theories of aging anyway. But it's fun to look at it that way. But in terms of if you take a look at it in what the brain's doing, right? Why not use the natural breaks of the brain to do it? And since we know that the general off switch of the brain is the GABA neuron, which is actually interneuron. The breaks are interspersed between two neurons that are actually firing either dopamine or epinephrine or serotonin. And what it does is it modulates the release of those neurotransmitters. And we all know that the GABA molecules really way too large, to be absorbed into the blood-brain barrier. So, in fact, when a GABA supplement works for you, it means that you have a leaky brain, meaning your blood-brain barrier actually is large enough. The fenestra are large enough such that the GABA actually enters your brain. But naturally, GABA doesn't penetrate the blood-brain barrier.
People are taking GABA supplements with good intentions.
Yeah.
If it works, you might have a leaky brain. but most likely in the case of a healthy person, it might not work. But you still want to relax. What are the other options available to them? And I want to dive into something that you coined in a bit, but give some examples of other options.
Well, we can proceed from natural ways, right? As I said earlier, you could get a fixed sleep time. We perform your sleep hygiene, which is like basically a dark room, cool enough. It's about 68 Fahrenheit is about the best temperature for sleeping. Even as a tropical boy, I find myself really wanting to sleep at a cooler temperature. They say that the bedroom should only be used for sleep or for sex. No, use the kitchen for sex. Just use the bedroom for sleep.
Dining tables, maybe.
But anyway, those natural things first, and then there are natural, as I said, natural teas and herbs like chamomile, magnolia bark, and all of these that are good for you. They actually make you sleepy, right? And many of my patients find it useful to do a sleep journal, meaning, in the in-between parts where they're actually slightly awake, you just put a mark so that they know exactly what kind that the sleep is like us, right? So the average sleep cycle is around 90 minutes or about an hour and a half. And then you have about 4 or 5 of those in the night. And I usually advise them not to wake up in the middle of a cycle, because then you'll feel like you've been hit by a Mack truck in the morning. And these are just simple things that you can do. It requires effort because it requires you monitoring your lifestyle, right? No more eating within 3 hours of sleeping. Be upright before, after dinner, so that if you're going to sleep, there's no more food left. Gastric emptying time's about 3 hours. It's just practical things that we know about the body that can help us fall asleep, because the sleep, it's still a mystery why we sleep.
Yeah.
And it's even a bigger mystery why we dream. But that whole part is a part of our regenerative cycle. And we're like boards, we need to sleep at night.
Other things this is actually a term that you coined, and want to bring it up now, called the Oblipair. So when somebody is thinking about sleep supplementation, you've already talked a little bit about tools in the toolkit, right? Getting your sleep schedule right, taking your chamomile teas, serving as that signal to go to sleep, melatonin perhaps if needed, check your levels. When we're talking, so glutamate, body's primary excitatory neurotransmitter, gets turned into GABA, but we can also add GABA for people that aren't producing it effectively. Can we take people through that process of how, if they're going to think about, or if they know they need to add more GABA to their system, how they should look at it?
Yeah, one of the most interesting things about glutamate transforming into GABA is it's just like the dopamine to norepinephrine conversion, right?
Yeah.
It's like the antithetical pair is actually produced by the one molecule ahead. So dopamine first, and then it's converted to norepinephrine. And GABA is one of those. It's like glutamate, and then it gets turned on to GABA. A delicate dance between glutamate and GABA production. Now, it's a marvel how nature does this.
It's kind of a funny biochemical change.
Yeah.
Like you need excitement in order
To relax.
down.
Yeah. And what we have done over the decades in working with GABA is really that there are 2 GABA receptors. So there's types of GABA receptors. There's GABA A and GABA B. And we're mostly concerned with GABA A here, especially for sleep, for example, or actualizes, delineation of anxiety symptoms. So the GABA receptor actually has, let's just say, 2 areas where GABA and GABA-like or GABA-acting molecules can bind. So the first is called the orthosteric ligand. Orthosteric meaning the right ligand, right? And the endogenous, meaning what the body produces. Endogenous orthosteric ligand simply means that it's GABA that's actually binding. So orthosteric ligands for GABA A are few and far between, right? And then, whereas there are plentiful non-orthosteric ligands for GABA A. An example of a non-orthosteric ligand is alcohol and benzodiazepines or benzos. So
Zolpidem as well.
yes, zolpidem as well. We have all of this class of drugs that actually affect what are called modulators. And in this case, since they increase the activity of the chloride channel or the hyperpolarization, or in simple terms, they increase the effect of the inhibition. They're called positive allosteric modulators. So they're positive allosteric modulators, negative allosteric modulators, inverse agonists, a lot of all that stuff. But mainly what I focused on was why just affect the positive allosteric modulator, right? And there's a knowledge that really positive allosteric modulators would work only if you had normal GABA levels, right? So, or if you have GABA available.
So in theory, if you didn't have any GABA available and it's enhancing the production of nothing available,
yes.
it's just multiplication. 0 times 4 equals 4.
Uh,
Or 0. So it doesn't.
No, what happens is that this is the reason why the effectivity of, say, a benzodiazepine would decrease over time. Other than what they call tolerance, right? It's because also you're depleting GABA when you're using it. It needs the GABA, not just ligand, to be fair. So I thought, why not always give them in a pair, right? And that's why I thought about the obligate pairing between an orthosteric ligand and a non-orthosteric ligand, particularly with a positive allosteric modulator. The first form of that I did was for anxiolysis, right? So it's another anti-actionist where, as a positive allosteric modulator, we're using kavain from kava. There's orthosteric ligand. We're using N-nicotinyl GABA. So N-nicotinyl GABA actually is just vitamin B3 complex with GABA. As I said earlier, GABA cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, right? But when you complex it with vitamin B3, B3 can actually enter your blood-brain barrier. It pulls the GABA inside, and then inside the brain, it hydrolyzes into GABA by vitamin B3. Complexing with vitamin B3 is actually also a balancing fare, right? Because too much vitamin B3 and you'll be waking up, so you just have to have enough vitamin B3 in there such that it actually produces the anxiolysis that we want to produce. So that's why they have called the paradoxic effect of N-nicotinyl GABA. Too high and it would be activating to the brain. So what I did was created a formula where there's the orthosteric ligand with N-nicotinyl GABA and then the positive allosteric modulator of GABA, and it turned out to be quite potent if you do comparison in terms of effect. And this is just from asking my patients, right? Because I give this to my patients. You give 1/4 for those of my patients, of which there are quite a few of them, who take 10 milligrams of Valium before they go to work as a precautionary measure for the stresses of they being a CEO of a very large company, right? So 1/4 is enough to soothe or calm the anxiety, and they report no tolerance for the formula, right? And they do it consistently. They get the effects, and hey, we're relieving suffering in these people, right? Which is the mission of the company. A big epidemic. In fact, there's a global pandemic of it, right? Is sleeplessness, right?
The average American sleeps less than 6 hours a night.
Yeah.
That's not enough, right?
No. You should get at least 4 cycles. That's if it's 90 minutes, that you have at least 6 hours or 7 hours on third.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of the 4. Right now, we're both jet lagged, so we are in violation of whatever that is. So for sleep, again, we have various sorts of drugs. right? That affect again the positive allosteric modulator, right? Like the likes of Ambien, for example. But then no one's addressing the GABA part, the orthosteric ligand, right? We only addressing the non-orthosteric portion. Again, by the principle of obligate pairing or Oblipair, what I chose there was to use agarine, right? Which comes from a mushroom, right? And then you use that. That is an actual GABA agonist, meaning it will bind to the receptor GABA without any hydrolyzation. And then what I put in as a positive allosteric modulator is honokyle from magnolia bark, right? And one other derivative of honokyle is dihydrohonokyle, which is a little bit more powerful than honokyle itself. Because sleep is a very complex thing, right? We have to support all the aspects of sleep, right from sleep induction, basically increasing the sleep drive. As you go through the day, you would like to stop your coffee intake anymore because it displaces the adenosine from the receptors, and then decreases your sleep drive. Napping, in fact, can be good for you, but it also decreases your sleep drive. When you feel tired, you get sleepy, right? And then you have to induce sleep, right? So you have to prepare your body to sleep, you have to induce sleep, you have to maintain sleep, right? And then, what a patient or a person really wants is, I want to wake up refreshed, right? To have that deep sleep in there. And luckily, we were able to find materials for all those that are natural. But the Oblipair there, that we're using is actually for the positive allosteric modulator is honokyle, and then we're using agarine for the orthosteric as an obligate pair. So I just read recently that there was one company that released orthosteric ligand and positive allosteric modulator. I'm just not sure. The orthosteric ligand, I think, was synthetic, right? There are synthetic GABA agonists in there, like gaboxidol, for example, and it's still being sold in countries like Mexico. And there are also downstream metabolites of the metabolism of melatonin that have been declared illegal, which are actually very powerful agents to help you sleep. They actually make you sleep, right? Like Gamma-Aminobutyric Acid. But hydroxybutyric acid is still, is still really a good and orthosteric ligand, especially if you use it for the GABA-B receptor. The GABA-B receptor is mainly used for like spasticities, right?
Baclofen.
Yeah, baclofen, faclofen. All of these things are because the structure of the GABA-A receptor is more like a pentameric structure, so it's like a flower. But the GABA-B is more like a Venus flytrap. It's a dimer. And the GABA-A is called an ionotropic receptor, meaning it regulates the control of chloride ions. GABA-B is what's called a metabotropic receptor, right? So what happens is that it actually gates both the potassium and calcium channels. So the calcium channels presynaptically and potassium channels postsynaptically. So whereas the GABA-A is really only postsynaptic. So you could see there the differences, and the effects are also very different, right? If you want to quiet down, if you want to decrease spasticity, then that's when you use a baclofen type of system. This is actually quite interesting that sometimes they use baclofen for pain, and it's really because the muscles are spastic and it's causing pain, right? Because it's contracted. But anyway, the whole concept of obligate pairing is that why are you only putting a single agent there that's going to affect the positive allosteric modulator when you can actually provide both orthosteric and non-orthosteric ligand together, because the non-orthosteric ligand is dependent on the levels of GABA that you have, right? So by putting in an orthosteric ligand in there, you are assured that you have enough.
So you have the
of that. So for me, it just made sense,
Right. Well, I want to wrap things up here today, Dr. Ted. For those listening, we've covered a wide range of topics, all related to relaxation, an in-depth guide to GABA. We got into different ways you can use. I mean, basically, you gave a sleep class here. You went through ways to increase sleep induction naturally, good sleep hygiene, etc. And we kind of rounded off with the Oblipair. So, for those of you tuned in today, thank you for tuning in. Smash that like button, hit subscribe. We'll see you soon.